My brother took out a $750,000 loan in my name to buy a house, and my parents begged me to stay quiet. I didn't, so at family dinner, I slid the police report across the table. It was a Tuesday morning when everything changed. I was in my small physical therapy office, sipping decaf coffee, reviewing the day's schedule. At 32, my life was simple: working with patients to restore their mobility, hitting the gym, and occasionally grabbing a beer with friends. But that day, an email from the bank froze me. The subject read, "Notice of Default Mortgage." I thought it was a mistake, maybe one of those scam emails fishing for info. I didn't have a mortgage. I live in a modest rented apartment, enough for me. But the email looked real, with my full name, account number, and a jaw-dropping figure: $750,000. I called the bank immediately. The representative, in a flat tone, confirmed the impossible: a mortgage in my name plus other debts, credit cards, a luxury car loan, and a line of credit for an unknown company, totaling nearly $1 million. My heart pounded as I explained I hadn't signed anything. Unfazed, she suggested checking my credit report and filing a police report for fraud. That afternoon, on my couch with my laptop, I downloaded my credit report. It was like opening a door to hell. Beyond the mortgage for a mansion in an upscale neighborhood, there were accounts at luxury stores, a Porsche loan, and a $25,000 jewelry debt. My carefully maintained credit score was ruined. I felt betrayed, exposed, like someone had invaded my life. That night, I called Diego, a friend and accountant with some legal experience. He said it sounded like identity theft and urged me to gather proof I didn't sign those documents. He advised freezing my accounts, hiring a fraud-specialized lawyer, and reporting it to the police. I followed his advice, visiting the station the next day. An older officer with a gray mustache listened patiently, explaining that identity theft was common but needed hard evidence: suspicious emails, IP addresses, forged signatures. I took notes, a mix of anger and confusion swirling. Who could have done this? A stranger? Someone close? That night, as I scoured my emails, my mom called. Her voice was tense, like she was hiding something. She asked how I was, but her tone felt forced. After an awkward pause, she said my younger brother, Oliver, wanted to discuss something important and invited me to a family dinner that weekend. I didn't think much of it, but a gut feeling warned me. Oliver, 5 years younger, was always my parents' favorite, the golden child. While I worked hard to pay for my physical therapy degree, he seemed to coast through life, landing a high-paying tech job after college and marrying Madison, a woman obsessed with flaunting her lavish lifestyle online. We weren't close but weren't enemies either, just different. Friday, driving to my parents' house, I couldn't stop thinking about the loan. The idea that someone used my identity had me paranoid, mentally reviewing friends, coworkers, exes. Nobody fit. My mom greeted me with an overly tight hug, like she feared I'd bolt. My dad, in his armchair, barely glanced at me. Oliver and Madison were in the dining room, their smiles seeming fake. Dinner felt normal on the surface. Mom chattered about her book club, Dad grumbled about traffic, Oliver spun an exaggerated tale about a Maldives trip. But I was distracted, eyeing Oliver. Something was off. His shiny new watch cost more than my monthly salary. Madison, in an expensive dress, mentioned renovating their house. Then it hit me, their house. I pulled out my phone and checked the mortgage's address. It matched the one Oliver mentioned weeks ago when he said they'd moved to a bigger place. My pulse raced. Could my own brother be behind this? I didn't say anything, my mind in chaos. I excused myself to the bathroom but called Diego, sharing my discovery. He cautioned against jumping to conclusions but urged gathering evidence, suggesting I analyze the mortgage signatures and trace IP addresses of the fraudulent accounts. That night, back at my apartment, I didn't sleep. The thought of Oliver's betrayal crushed me, but it all added up. He was the favorite, always getting away with everything, even when he owed me money, like the car loan he never repaid. This was bigger, my parents might be shielding him. The next morning, I contacted Javier, a fraud-specialized lawyer Diego recommended. Javier was blunt. Family identity theft was tough but provable. He asked for bank statements, emails, and messages with Oliver, and said he'd hire a forensic expert to analyze signatures and investigate IP addresses. Over the next few days, I turned detective, scouring emails and notifications. The fraudulent accounts were opened over the last 18 months, coinciding with Oliver and Madison's lavish lifestyle. I found a suspicious email sent from my account with an unfamiliar IP address. With a tech expert Javier hired, we traced it to a cafe near Oliver's house. On Friday, Javier called. The expert confirmed the signatures on the mortgage and accounts weren't mine. Subtle but clear differences. IP logs showed access to my account from Oliver's house. The evidence was solid, but Javier warned that confronting Oliver carelessly could complicate things, especially if my parents knew something. I recalled Mom's nervous call, her implied plea to avoid drama. Were they protecting him? The thought sickened me, but I couldn't ignore it. I decided the next family dinner would be the moment to act, armed with evidence and a police report. The days before the dinner were a mix of anxiety and resolve. Each morning, I woke with a knot in my stomach like boarding a roller coaster with a shaky seatbelt. Javier kept me busy, asking for old bank statements, texts with Oliver, and social media interactions to build an airtight case. If you confront your family, the truth must hit like a hammer, he said. I spent hours digging through my phone and laptop, finding texts from Oliver asking for small favors. Can I use your address for a delivery? Or, need a number for a form, can you share yours? They seemed innocent then, now they felt like clues. Madison's social media was a parade of luxury, yacht photos, designer bags, an infinity pool at what must be the fraud-funded mansion. Each post stung. How hadn't I seen it? The tech expert found more account accesses from Oliver's house and, shockingly, my dad's office. That stopped me cold. My dad, who preached integrity, involved? Javier urged caution, but the evidence didn't lie. Families get messy when money's involved, he warned. The dinner arrived, a Saturday night heavy with unexplainable tension. Driving to my parents' house, I rehearsed my plan, carrying a folder with the police report, signature analyses, IP logs, fraudulent statements, and a letter from Javier outlining legal consequences. I wanted answers, not just confrontation. The house smelled of Mom's signature lasagna, a family gathering staple. She greeted me with another long hug, her eyes red like she'd cried. Dad sat in the living room, staring blankly at the TV. Oliver and Madison arrived soon after, their perfect smiles and outfits intact. But Oliver seemed restless, tapping the table, and Madison was unusually quiet. Dinner started with forced chatter. Mom rambled about neighbors, but nobody engaged. Dad ate silently, staring at his plate. Oliver and Madison exchanged glances, like they shared a secret. I barely touched my food, the folder in my lap feeling like a ticking bomb. Finally, I couldn't hold back. As Mom offered dessert, I raised a hand and said, calmer than I felt, "Before dessert, I have something to share." All eyes turned to me, the silence deafening. I placed the folder in front of me. Mom paled, Dad frowned, and Oliver dropped his fork. "A few weeks ago I got a bank email," I began, voice steady. "It said I owe $750,000 for a mortgage plus credit card debts, a luxury car, and a fake company, all in my name. But I didn't sign anything." I paused, locking eyes with Oliver. His widened slightly, but he stayed silent. Madison gripped her napkin, knuckles white. Mom tried to speak. "Son, it's probably a mistake. Banks mess up all the time." Her voice shook, avoiding my gaze. Dad cleared his throat but said nothing. Oliver finally spoke. "That sounds awful, bro. How can we help?" His tone was so fake I almost laughed. "I don't need help," I said, opening the folder. "I hired a lawyer. We analyzed the signatures, they're not mine. We traced the IP addresses of the accounts. Guess where they lead, Oliver? Your house. And a cafe 2 blocks from where you live." The silence was absolute. Mom let out a soft whimper, Dad closed his eyes, and Madison stared at Oliver, waiting. She broke the silence. "This is ridiculous. You're accusing Oliver? That's insane." "Not an accusation," I said, sliding the police report across the table. "A fact. This details the fraud. The evidence is clear. Someone used my identity for a house, car, jewelry. It all points to you, Oliver." His face reddened and I thought he'd yell. Instead he paced, panicked. You don't know what you're talking about. It's a misunderstanding. I didn't do anything. Then explain, I said, arms crossed. Why aren't the signatures mine, but the accounts were opened from your house? Why does the mortgage address match your new mansion? My voice rose, anger spilling out. Mom intervened, tears streaming. Please don't do this. We're family. We can fix it without this, gesturing at the report like it was poison. Dad spoke, voice low. Son, think about what you're doing. This could destroy your brother. All of us. Destroy Oliver? I said, incredulous. What about me? My life, my credit, my future? Someone has to pay. I looked at Oliver, hoping for a confession, but he just shook his head, stunned. Madison stood. This is a witch hunt. You've got no right to accuse us without solid proof. Her voice shook, eyes avoiding mine. She knew she was lying. The proof's here, I said, tapping the folder. And there's more. My lawyer's ready for court if needed. But I don't want that. I want the truth. Now. The table's atmosphere was unbearable. Mom sobbed, Dad stared at the floor, and Oliver paced, muttering. He stopped and looked at me. I didn't want this to happen, he whispered. What am I supposed to do? Turn myself in? Ruin my life? Your life? I replied, voice breaking. You ruined mine. Why, Oliver? Why me? He didn't answer, sitting and burying his face in his hands. Madison watched silently. Mom approached, touching my arm. Please, son, don't do this. We can find another way. Don't destroy the family. Her words hurt but enraged me. Why was I always the one to yield? Why did Oliver always skate free? I won't stay quiet, I said, gently but firmly pulling away. This isn't just about me. It's about what's right. Oliver must face consequences. I looked at him, but he just stared down. Dinner ended in silence. Nobody touched dessert. Oliver and Madison left without a goodbye, and my parents barely spoke as I gathered my things. Leaving, I felt relief mixed with sadness. I'd taken the first step, but the fight wasn't over. The evidence was clear, but Oliver's confession hadn't come, and my parents seemed ready to protect him at any cost. Driving home, I knew the battle was just beginning, but I wouldn't back down. The following days were a whirlwind. My phone buzzed constantly. Mom sent texts begging me to reconsider, to talk as a family. Dad called once, coldly saying I was tearing us apart. Each word cut, but I stood firm. I'd spent years being the peacemaker, always giving in. Not this time. Javier was my anchor, explaining that our evidence, police report, signature analyses, IP logs, supported a strong case for identity theft and fraud. But he warned it'd be a long, emotionally draining process, especially with family involved. If you proceed, brace for things to get ugly before they get better, he said. I nodded, knowing there was no turning back. A week after the dinner, Javier called with news. Oliver and Madison had hired a tough lawyer, claiming I'd implicitly allowed use of my info based on old texts where Oliver asked for favors. It was a weak defense but could complicate things. Javier wasn't worried. They're scared buying time. The evidence is overwhelming. Meanwhile, my life was on hold. My credit was trashed and daily calls from debt collectors piled up. One morning, during a patient session, a collection agency threatened to seize my assets. I stepped into the hall to avoid breaking down, vowing not just for justice but for Oliver and Madison to face consequences for shattering my stability. At our next meeting, Javier showed a new report tying Madison directly to several fraudulent accounts. She'd used her own email for some transactions, a glaring mistake. The fake company linked to a debt was a front Madison created to justify lavish spending. Their scheme was collapsing. Javier suggested a bold move, an out-of-court mediation with Oliver and Madison. If they confessed and agreed to repay, we could avoid a lengthy trial. If not, we'd go all in. I agreed, though skeptical they'd confess willingly. Oliver always dodged accountability, and Madison seemed ready to lie to the end. The mediation was set in a sterile office with white walls and a conference table screaming serious business. Javier and I arrived early, folder ready. When Oliver and Madison entered with their lawyer, the air grew heavy. Oliver barely met my gaze. Madison's defiant expression faltered slightly. The mediator, a middle-aged woman with glasses, laid out the rules, a chance to resolve without court. Javier presented our evidence calmly but forcefully, signature analyses, IP logs, Madison's emails. When he finished, the mediator looked at Oliver and Madison, awaiting a response. Their lawyer tried interjecting about misunderstandings and implied permissions, but she stopped him. The evidence is clear. What do you have to say? Oliver broke, shoulders slumping, voice trembling. I didn't want it to go this far. I just needed help to start. I thought I'd repay before you noticed. Madison, furious, cut in. Don't say anything, Oliver. But he ignored her. The house, the cards, it got out of control. I didn't know how to stop. His confession lifted a weight but stabbed me. My brother, someone I grew up with, had toyed with my life like a game. I asked what I needed to know. Why me? Why not ask for help? He looked down. I knew you'd say no. And Mom and Dad always backed me. I thought you would too. That hurt most, not just the fraud but that my parents knew. When I asked if they were involved, Oliver hesitated, but Madison snapped. They didn't know details. I told them we needed house help. They didn't ask much. I wasn't sure I believed her, but my anger at my parents grew. How could they be so blind? The mediator proposed a deal. Oliver and Madison would pay immediate partial restitution, sell the house, and assume the debts. In return, I wouldn't push for harsher criminal charges. Javier looked to me. I wanted them to pay but also to close this chapter. I agreed on condition they confess in writing. Weeks later, the house sold and some money covered debts. Oliver and Madison faced minor fraud charges, enough for a few months in jail. My parents, devastated, tried talking, but I needed space. Each conversation reminded me of their tacit complicity, always choosing Oliver. 2 years later, my life had shifted. With Javier's help, I cleared my credit, though it took time and effort. I bought a modest house with my savings, simple but mine, earned honestly. I started rebuilding ties with Oliver's kids, my nephews who weren't to blame. I visited weekends, helping with homework or taking them to the park, finding in them some of the family I'd lost. My work as a physical therapist became my refuge. Each patient I helped walk again, each relieved smile, reminded me I could build something good despite the pain. Oliver and I don't speak, and though I sometimes feel a void, I also feel peace. I faced betrayal, demanded justice, and came through. One afternoon, watering plants in my new backyard, I got a text from Mom. A photo of her with my nephews, smiling at a picnic, captioned, "We miss you." I didn't reply right away but saved it. Maybe with time we could heal. For now, I was at peace with myself. After everything, that was enough.